of the town of Groton. And the town clerk will begin by taking the roll call.
Okay, Karen Adams.
Here.
Robert Bailey.
Here.
Portia Bordelon.
Here.
Clarence Casper. Kathy Chase. Jennifer Siller Fleming.
Here.
Thomas Frickman. James Gustafson. Autumn Hanscom.
Here.
Roseanne Katowski. Wilmer Lampert.
Here.
Brandon Marley. Douglas Marshall. Robert Martin.
Here.
Jackie Massett.
Here.
Bruce McDermott.
Here.
Juan Melendez. Nancy Mello Miller.
Here.
That would be 11. Roscoe Merritt.
Here.
Doug Monahan. Scott Newsom. Cutter Oliver. Rich Pasqualini. Sheila Perry.
Here.
Sean Powers.
Here.
Adam Pacino. Carolyn Quinn.
Here.
Kate Richards.
Here.
Annie Rogers.
Here.
Reggie Stanford.
Here.
Ollie Starkley.
Here.
Dane Stevenson.
Here.
Irma Streeter. James Streeter. Judith Strode.
Here.
Beverly Washington. Gary Wells.
Here.
Michael Whitehouse.
Here.
Michael Whitney.
Here.
And Sima Eben.
Here.
That's 25.
Excellent. We have a quorum. Next, I would like to have us stand for a moment of silence. Representative Quinn, would you please lead us in the pledge? To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Oh, can you guys please silence your phones if they're not already? I usually keep mine off, but I'm going to double, triple check. The next item on our agenda is approval of minutes. Do I hear a motion? We have a motion from Representative Power and a second from Representative Adams to approve the March minutes from our RTM meeting. Is there any discussion on that? Any questions? No? Nothing to clarify? All right, great. All in favor of approving the minutes from our March meeting, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Those minutes are approved. Thank you. Now, this portion of the RTM agenda is where the RTM welcomes citizens' comments. Each presentation should be limited to 10 minutes or less, and citizens should, if possible, submit written comments. Presentations should be limited to matters pertinent to Groton. The moderator or members, through the moderator, shall ask questions only in order to clarify the speaker's presentation. Responses may be given by the moderator or the town manager, and citizens should make their presentations from the lectern and state their name and address for the record. I don't believe we have anyone here to speak, but if there is, you may approach the lectern now. No. Okay, thank you. So in terms of communications, I've received communications from a number of members that they won't be here tonight. Representatives Newsom, Washington, Pasqualini, Frickman, Gustafson, Melendez, Marshall, Streeter, both Irma and Jim, have noted they wouldn't be able to be here tonight, and I just wanted to wish Representative Pasqualini a quick recovery. And I did want to, at this moment, just take time to thank our Representative Alicia Bauer for her service, and I just wanted to read a few comments that Councilor Heed had put together. Basically, Alicia Bauer served for 19 years on the RTM, and she recently resigned for health reasons. She just got recognition from the Secretary of State, Denise Merrill, and she began her service back in 1973, serving as Montville's Justice of the Peace, and in the Inland Wetlands Commission. She moved to North Stonington and used her professional experience as a financial analyst to serve on the Finance Board before moving to Groton in 2000. And so I would like it if you'd all join me in thanking Alicia Bauer. And we can hope she's watching this on TV anyway. Thank you. The next item is the report of the town manager.
Good evening. Did I pick up? Can you hear me? Okay, there it
Yeah.
goes. Okay. First, the financial report. There's copies of the main report over on the table if you didn't receive one. Fund balance as of March 31st, 2019 is approximately $18 million, which is 14.8% of the FYE 2019 general fund adopted budget. The general contingency budget for FYE 2019 was appropriated at $450,000, and the current balance is $375,207. The capital reserve fund balance as of March 31st is estimated at $1 million. Just general ongoing or update for the RTM. We had our bond rating reviews last week for the school bonds as well as the wastewater treatment plant issuance. We just got those back yesterday and today. Everything was affirmed from last year, and as a matter of fact, Moody's had last year had added a negative outlook. They took that away, so that was good. So we had one slight improvement there, so everything came out good for the reviews. There's going to be, I think I forwarded to you, CCM is going to have a town hall meeting at the annex on the 18th. Everyone should have seen that email, hopefully, if you're interested in going. It's from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. And you should have also received an invitation to the groundbreaking ceremony for the middle school on the 23rd at 3:30. Par 4 restaurant there, the work on that street side entrance will start early May and take about 3 weeks to be done. Should be a significant improvement. I met with Par 4, one of the two owners, bless you, the other day, and went through that project. It's going to be a significant improvement there. The town council is looking at moving forward, or at least looking at the first draft of a plastics ordinance, a plastics ban. You may have heard about that, but you'll probably be seeing something about that soon. And other than that, that's all I have.
Thank you.
Open for any questions.
Any questions? I wanted to add one thing, and I apologize. It should have gone under communications, but Councilor Heed had just wanted me to extend an invitation to RTM members to walk in the 4th of July parade, which will start at 10 a.m. at Pequannock Plains Park. And if you're not into walking, you can ride on the Joe Dela Cruz's Community Speaks Out float. So if you're interested in that, I would suggest contacting Councilor Heed directly. Sorry about that. I realized I forgot to mention that. Superintendent Grenier, do you have any? We don't have anything for economic development, do we? No. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Yeah. That's fine.
So I wanted to be sure to start out with really kind of exciting news. The board voted last spring, and then just this week we applied for candidacy for a program called career-related program. It's an international baccalaureate program, and it's really aimed at, although it's open to all students, it's really aimed at the non-college bound student. And so I think you see here some of the notes I've written. It's open to 11th and 12th graders, like the diploma program is. Diploma program is very academically oriented. This is a program that would allow students to earn a certificate in engineering through Project Lead the Way, culinary arts, nursing, and business. And it would be, they would take two regular diploma courses in the International Baccalaureate world, a course that would include an internship and some professional studies that's called CORE, and then 2 courses in their career-related field. So we're really excited. We put the application in, and hopefully by the fall, we'll know that we are a full candidate program, at which point we're going to be able to start offering courses. So we're hoping informally as a candidate next fall, but as a full member program, so that students who are trying to perhaps get a job at EB would have some really high-quality Project Lead the Way engineering courses, or trying to get a job as perhaps an apprentice chef or something like that. They would have that. We have lots of students every year who go through our nursing program. This would be kind of a leg up for students, either getting into a nursing program, a CNA, or perhaps going to nursing college. So we're really excited about that. The board for a long time now has been kind of pushing to be sure that we're not only taking care of those academically inclined students, but the other kids who don't necessarily go right to college. The second thing is, actually thanks to some information that John and Cindy shared, the budget this year, the impact aid, fortunately, went up considerably for 2 reasons. One is the impact aid for it's the money that's already been received. The money that came for this year, normally we get about 80%, 75 to 80% of what we are hypothetically entitled to. This year it came in at 92%. And then last year's amount, that it comes in sometimes in different fiscal years, but FY18 money came in and they paid up to 96%, which is actually high typically. So this year we picked up, we thought, we projected we would have $3.2 million in impact aid. That is to say, that is the aid that comes from the Federal Education Department for federally impacted children, meaning their parents either are military dependents or their parent works at EB or works at a casino. Actually, that's federally impacted property as well. But we picked up 4.5 million. We projected 3.2 million. So I'm delighted to report we picked up an extra $1.3 million. So the town has already received that revenue. So that's on the positive side. And then the last thing I just wanted to say was to reinforce, those of you who have been to the top of Fort Hill, you will know that there's a big hole in the ground. And they have come and they are really going great guns at it. The groundbreaking will be the 23rd, and hopefully you should have received, and if you haven't, please contact John or his staff, because we really want to make sure all the municipal leaders who have been so supportive of the project, it will be Tuesday the 23rd at 3:30, and it should be really terrific. It's been 5 years since we've been thinking about this whole thing, and when the bulldozer showed up a couple of weeks ago, I couldn't contain myself. It's kind of literally a dream come true. And some of you have been with this. I see Jackie smiling. Some of you have been with this, and Kevin sitting back here for more than 5 years. I'm the newcomer, and I've been at it for 5.5 years. So this is really quite a wonderful thing. And then as time moves on, I'll come back with some updates about the 2 elementary schools that are actually we're beginning this summer. We're going to do some construction at Cutler, because we have to move a sewer line, because we're going to be putting the school in the back of Cutler, and we're going to have to do some work removing some fuel tanks this summer at Westside, because the Westside School is going into the parking lot at Westside. So I can give you some updates about that. But I'd be willing to answer any questions if there are any.
Representative Bordelon?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Thank you, Dr. Grenier, for the report. Just to double check on the status at the Westside School. I know originally, several weeks or even a month maybe by now ago, it was stated possibly that the kitchen might have to be shut down because of the blueprint of the new school would cut into that. And I know that the last time I had asked, it was being looked into, and I just want to make sure it's still
Yep,
off.
still off.
Perfect, thanks.
Representative Mello Miller?
Okay.
Just a couple of questions. So the extra revenue we received, the 1.3, where does that revenue go?
To the general fund.
So it goes back to the general fund. So that'll be used for where else it's needed. Can you just clarify, especially for the
Sure.
people
That's-
watching that maybe don't understand?
Sure, and that's part of what we've talked about before that's allowed us to start the budget with that 1.5 million use of fund balances. That, along with that, there's a couple other big categories that we had really good revenues in this year. So it goes into the general fund for use for any future budgeting or planning, so.
Okay, and then you mentioned last that the Cutler for the sewer line this summer, is that going to affect any Parks and Rec programs? Is that going to affect any, because I know that the other night at the budget session with Parks and Rec, there was already talk about the fields kind of getting,
Yeah.
messed up there, so,
Yeah. You know what, I'm gonna have to look into that.
okay.
I'm gonna say tentatively yes, but I don't know exactly where that sewer line runs. But presumably, well, I'll find out.
Okay, so,
I
and does
don't-
Parks and Rec, are they aware of that? I assume not, and how that will impact the summer programs?
Again,
Okay.
I'll make sure.
And then, I'm sorry, one more question. I've lived here 5 years. The International Baccalaureate program, all right, so there's the program for non-college bound. This IB program, is it kind of like an honors program where you would get, college credit for classes and then, or training, vice versa, for the non-college bound, or is this more just advanced studies? Again, this is for my
Yeah.
effect, and also people watching
Yeah.
that we're updating all the time.
Yeah, thank you. Well, the program that we've had for about 20 years now is called the International Baccalaureate Diploma Program. It's a 11th and 12th grade students. Students take classes typically for 2 years. It is viewed in the international academic community as a very challenging program. And so I think in some ways you've identified that's the diploma program. 5 years ago, when we started to think about the Groton 2020, we proposed that there would be grades 6 through 10, because the diploma program is only open to 11th and 12th graders, that there would be a program 6 through 10, which would really focus on inquiry-based learning. There's a real emphasis on teaching kids how they learn, how they best master material. And that program is an instructional model for all students. So starting this year and really formalizing it in the fall, we have the International Baccalaureate Middle Years program at Westside and at Cutler. And now we are going to introduce the career-related program, again, for 11th and 12th graders, but really for the career-oriented students. So it will be a true International Baccalaureate campus by the time we're finished.
And one more question, if I may, considering any more news about the humidity and the issues with that at Northeast Academy?
We've had the engineering firm is sending two sorts of engineers. One person, we still don't have the report on either, answered your question, but we are nearing the end of the report on the heating and ventilation system, and I think we've got some hopeful news there that I think they figured out a way to mitigate. The other news is we've had civil engineers come. We know that that school was built on a pretty wet spot of land, and so we're trying to figure out how to mitigate that, how to get the water away. The humidity is there, obviously, because it's on a wet piece of land. So we expect the heating and ventilation report in a couple of weeks, and I think it's going to take us into the summer to get the engineering report, the civil engineering report for looking at, actually taking, I'm not sure what this really means, but core slabs. So core samples, which makes me nervous about going through the core of a school. But nevertheless, whatever, whatever that means, they're trying to figure out how to mitigate the humidity.
And this is through the money that we've already approved for this, correct? There's not been, you're still using that?
We're using operational money for that.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Representative Lambert?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Hey, Dr. Grenier. So with the 6 through 10 focused on inquiry-based learning,
Right.
I wondered, since the IB program seems to be geared towards students who may not be on a path to college, is there anything with like a career aptitude test that kind of guides them to what career would be a fit? And
Yes.
I just don't want the impression to seem that we are taking them away from college versus something that they already want to go into.
Right. Well, I can tell you that the middle years program, some of the high school students asked me about that the other day, and the best thing I can say about the middle years program is that it teaches people how to learn, what your learning style is and how you learn best. But within the middle years program, there will be pathways. So some of the students, like at Westside right now, are pursuing the STEM pathway. So they are pursuing there are lots of robotics, engineering. We're bringing in engineers, a lot of career-oriented work like that. And then at Cutler, we're doing similar things, partnership with Mystic Seaport and with Mystic Museum of Art. But there are aptitude counseling programs that the students take, and the staff works with them. And we are very much interested in identifying careers, actually for all students, because I can tell you when I have students come to my office occasionally, they don't come very often, and they don't come for good reasons. I always say to them, what are you going to do after high school? And it always opens up a very productive conversation. They want to go in the military, they want to go into a trade, or whatever it is, and we kind of lay that path out. So I think there's a lot of that work going on, and the whole 5 years of 6 through 10th grade will really focus on allowing the student to get ready. And then when they go into 11th grade, they should be prepared to, if they want, to go into nursing or business or culinary or engineering. So that's really the point.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Representative Rogers?
Just a quick question for Mr. Burt, actually. I just wanted, I'm trying to compare here in the budget book. It looks like that surplus in the impact aid grant is reflected in our budget book. Is that right? The 1.3 million?
Yeah, I believe so. I don't
Okay.
have the book right in front
It's
of me.
not
but
an extra 1.3?
No.
Okay.
I
Thank
wish.
you.
Representative
Well,
Stevens?
the extra notion of it was, we projected 3.2, and it came in at 4.5. So that's the excess that
Right, I just wanted to make sure that that information was not like
Yeah.
within the last 2 days or something.
No,
but
no.
Yeah.
No, we knew going into the
Yeah.
early.
Actually, the money has arrived. It's not a
Yeah.
projection. It's in the bank.
Representative Stevenson?
Just a quick question. This curriculum for the career-related program, is that developed, who develops that, and like, what's the process
It's
for that curriculum?
developed. It's really the school's curriculum taught through an international baccalaureate instructional template. So I guess the easiest way to say this, the what of the curriculum is the school's. The how of the curriculum, instead of it being frequently offered as in a lecture style. It actually comes through an inquiry-based or problem-solving based model. So they mandate how your curriculum is organized and presented, but they don't mandate the curriculum.
Because I see a lot of these are kind of more amorphous topics. So I'm just wondering what the process.
Which
is.
ones are you referring to?
The third bullet point here, the program's curriculum framework develops linguistic proficiencies.
Oh,
critical
I see.
thinking skills.
Yeah, that's the career related. Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
So-
career related.
So the studies, the trade studies, the career studies classes that they take actually come from some sort of external organization. So Project Lead the Way is the state-of-the-art engineering program. It's a big nationwide program. So they actually provide the curriculum. A place like Johnson & Wales will provide the culinary arts curriculum. So in those cases, yes, the curriculum comes from some organization. Our nursing curriculum comes from the nursing consortium, so that the students have to meet those standards.
Representative Whitehouse?
Right. So as someone who went through public school in the 90s and then a fairly good college and then started a business and was completely unprepared for business, I'm very excited to hear that we have this kind of curriculum and that we're preparing kids for the actual real world challenges, which is, as a parent of a child entering the school system next year, I'm very excited to hear we have these kinds of programs. But with the International Baccalaureate program, is there a limit to how many kids can get in, or is it as many as want to, they'll make room for any program?
In grades 6 through 10, it's everybody. It's 100%.
Okay.
It is our instructional program in grades 6 through 10. For the diploma program, it has grown significantly over the last couple of years. From a low when I first got here, about 6 or 7 students who were actually going for the diploma. Some kids were taking classes, but to go for it's a 6-course sequence. Now there are about 30 students this year completing it. And next year there are about 40. We talked to the sophomores. There are about 45 sophomores. It's kind of amazing. But with the career-related program, the reason I was so interested, I went to a conference, and it's very common in Pennsylvania. And Pennsylvania schools talked about having 325 students in the program. So it really gives kids a leg up. It gives them an internship. I should have mentioned that. It's really a terrific career-related pathway for a student.
And as many students as want to take it are able to?
Absolutely.
Okay, that's
Yes.
fantastic. Thank you.
Representative Bordon?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I'm still trying to convince myself on the IB program versus AP. What does something like this cost in our budget? If you look at the full Board of Ed budget, what percent or what number, and if you have to get back to me, that's fine. Does it cost to fund, including teacher training and all the travel, everything?
Yeah.
What does that cost for this town to fund it?
Yeah, it costs $43,000 a year, if I'm not mistaken, to run the program, program fees and so forth. There are also tests that the students take, the diploma students take, and that depends on how many students take the test, of course. And the training, it comes sporadically, and it is typically about $3,000 a teacher about every 5 years or so. Teachers have to do that. So again, that is the sort of, it's the same training for Project Lead the Way. It's the same training for advanced placement, for example. So there is a fee that goes along with that.
Thank you for that clarification. And my last question, lead water update, where do we stand as of today?
Well, we have continued to work with the health department. The last vestige of any water that tested above the actionable level was at the concession stand. That was tested early Saturday morning. We should get the test results back. All the other water, virtually every place that tested at or above the actionable level, has been remediated by our staff, and upon retesting, it is not at the actionable level any longer. It's below. So we're doing well in that area, and we'll get the results and I'll report them.
Representative Bailey?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Also, along with that subject, Mr. Greener, is there a consideration that when school is not open for a particularly long period of time, flushing the water might be a very good thing to do?
Yes.
I know that being on submarines, we have to flush the potable water system hoses every time we use them, because we fill potable like once every other day, but stagnant things can build up. So do you have that as a consideration?
We do. We have. I don't want to misspeak, but I think that is a daily process for the custodians. Every single morning, they come in and they flush the sinks and they flush the system out. But certainly, if a school had been left unoccupied, like during the summer months, we would have a significant program to make sure that water is moving.
Thank you, Mr. Greener. Thank you, Madam Moderator.
Thank you. That's a good point. Any other questions for the superintendent? Representative Stevenson?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. The internship program, can you elaborate on that? Is there any compensation for the students? What are we looking at here? Are we talking about school hours, summer? What are we?
It is. In the International Baccalaureate, they actually call it a service learning project. It depending upon the age of the student, we will not provide transportation. So what it would be we would help to coordinate that. It typically would be outside of school hours. Although I know there are some seniors who have transportation and sometimes have periods off, so they would be. We've had students do that in the past, but I'm not suggesting it would be like a long program, but it might be 20 or 30 hours where the student would get exposed. And so we're trying to form partnerships with local businesses and EB and so forth. So the program mandates that the students do some service learning, and we're trying to expand that. And we have students now. There's actually a course called Cooperative Work Experience. So we do have students who leave and go to jobs, and they do get compensated. And a teacher goes to the job site and works with the boss to be sure the students are meeting their work goals.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Grenier.
You're welcome.
We'll see you next month, I guess. We have some liaison reports now. Representative Whitehouse, do you have a report of the economic development?
So for a long time, the economic development team has been talking about how we're working with these different properties and trying to find preferred developers and whatnot. Well, we finally have one that there's actually a nameable partner. The Groton Heights School, Thayer Mahan is going to be moving in there, which is going to be some very good jobs and very good business for that location. They were also talking at the last EDC meeting about the success of the marketing of Groton, because they go out to a lot of these trade shows where developers are and where they're looking for different places to invest. And what Paige Bronk was saying is that when he first started going there, people would say, Groton, is that like near Stamford, or where is that? And now when people see Groton, they actually know where it is. They know what part of the state it's in. They know that it's on the water. So they're doing a very good job of making people aware, because in real estate it's location, location, location. So if people don't know what part of the state you're in, there's no way you're going to get in contention. So now a lot of those developers and businesses are becoming aware of the town. They're doing an excellent job of getting that word out there. We're also leading a collaboration committee, so there's an effort of a number of different towns together, because of course, working with EB with thousands of employees, they live in every town around, not just in Groton, and there's different things that EB needs from the towns, different things the towns need from EB, so we're collaborating to be able to have one committee that talks to EB instead of every town sending liaisons in and EB having to spend all their time talking to every individual town. Is much more efficient. We as communities are able to get more of what we need from them and also find out how we can help them to retain their employees, which is good for everyone, because if they retain their employees, we retain our new, young, skilled residents, which is a great thing. And the best thing is that all the towns are actually working well together, which is not something you always hear in these kinds of stories. So everyone's kind of rowing in the same direction, which is a great thing. And that is all the news from the EDC. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Melendez? Oh, no. Representative Bordelon, do you have anything for the education?
I was going to say, Portia Bordelon, 159 Shenanigans Parkway. I got a little stage fright up here for a minute. All right, hold on. Here we go. For the record, I'm still looking for help. If anybody wants to join and help me out with the meetings, it'd be greatly appreciated. Distiller. All right, so I attended the Board of Ed meeting on March 18th, 6 p.m. It was a committee of the whole. Let's see. All of the Board of Ed members were present. Rita Volkman was absent. In attendance from other staff, Dr. Grenier, Superintendent, Susan Austin, Assistant Superintendent, Sam Kilpatrick, Buildings and Grounds. There was also the Director of Technology who attended, Dennis, and the Student Representative, Addie Clark. They approved their minutes from the following meeting. They had a review of technology and replacement, which also I'm going to be submitting an attachment which goes over what they suspect will be the cost of replacing over the next several years, each item, laptop, what have you. So I'll have that also for you guys to look at. In that report, Mr., and I'm going to say his name wrong, Kokol, gave an overview of technology replacement plan. He explained the rationale for replacement of each item over a 10-year cycle. He also stated that the replacement plan does not include active panels at the middle schools. Probably something to do, I'm assuming, with the fact that they're going to be moving stuff out of there and replacing things when they tear down those buildings. So, the breakdown of the replacement costs is included in the report, and I called it Attachment 1, and it's in here for you. Let's see what else I got. Discussion of the Board of Ed they had a discussion about parent groups and Board of Ed involvement. They talked about making sure, how the Board of Ed is relaying information, attending parent groups. It was suggested that prior notification should be given to the principal and/or superintendent, and Dr. Grenier invited the board to attend with him on walkthroughs, which seem to happen roughly on a monthly basis. Mrs. Watson suggested an ad hoc committee to plan community conversations and meetings on topics relevant to education. Discussion on videotaping of CAL presentations. As you know, they only have one meeting a month that's at the annex taped. Ms. Watson asked the board members their opinion on having the CAL meetings recorded on video. The overall consensus was to have only the special presentations at the CAL meetings recorded to the public for public viewing, not the whole meeting. The board was not in favor of recording regular meetings on video for public access at this time. Suggested future topics, Mrs. Fitzgerald, one of the Board of Ed members, she just went over that she would like to just talk about climate survey results, lottery mechanics, future discussion on information the board will provide to the RTM and Town Council. The meeting was adjourned at 8 p.m. So once again, I have a breakdown on what the cost of each of the technology devices will be. I also attended the, let's see here. I apologize, my eyesight has been a little bit compromised lately, so I'm having trouble reading. so it's taking me a little bit longer. Let's see here. I attended the meeting on March 25th at 6 p.m. This was a regular meeting. This was at the Town Annex. Everybody was in attendance. Absent was Rita Volkman and Gretchen Newsom. Additional members, Superintendent, Dr. Grenier, Assistant Superintendent, Susan Austin, Sam Kilpatrick, Building Director, Miss Addie Clark, Student Representative, and Mr. Daniel, I always say this wrong. Wait, what did I miss somebody? Hold on, sorry. I apologize.
Probably doesn't matter. You can just.
Dan was also the student representative present. I might have to have somebody help me read. Is that okay?
I can read it if you want to.
Yeah,
There you go.
sorry about that, guys. I'm like all flubbering all over here. If you have any questions, I'll help you. My eyesight is a little off. Yeah, no, thanks. Right here, citizens' comments. So they had a citizen. There you go.
Comments from citizen. Mrs. Whitley, GASP, an Alliance for Substance Abuse Prevention, requested help in educating Groton community on the dangers of underage drinking and drug use. She would like to set up an evening public information exchange session to educate parents and students. Do you want me to read?
You can say that.
Portia Borlon at 159 Shinnecock Parkway supported Miss Whitley's initiative and added that particular focus should be paid to the current vaping trends school-wide in the middle and high schools. Ms. Borlon also asked about the current status of efforts to bring in a JROTC program to Groton. She also asked what the action plan is for the students and spigots that have not yet been tested for lead levels, and follow-up plans for those schools and spigots that have been identified at the allowable level. She also shared her concerns regarding the lack of honors level English courses for 11th graders. Want me to continue?
Yep.
Response to comments from citizens. Mrs. Watson noted that the board will be having more discussions around substance abuse and educating the community. Mrs. Watson also noticed that Mrs. Austin will be addressing the concern noted with course selection for honor English for 11th graders. Mrs. Watson noted that the water testing is reported on a monthly basis. Superintendent and administration reports. Superintendent report. Dr. Grenier stated surveys are being developed for a third pathway for the middle school to offer an addition to the existing STEM and arts and humanities. The assistant superintendent report. Ms. Austin stated that from March 20th to 22nd, Richard Kallenberg conducted focus groups to look at goals concerning the Groton 2020 plan and the new middle school with an eye toward how best to account for socioeconomic balance in the tracks. She also discussed her most recent walkthrough at the high school where she talked with teachers regarding testing of AB/IB students and ways they are using the interim assessments. The Kallenberg survey questions and background information are included with this report as attachment 1.
So there's several pages here that you'll get in the email that have Mr. Kallenberg's background demographics along with the questions that were sent out to conduct the survey.
The business office report. Dr. Grenier gave an overview of object code summary dated March 20th, 2019, showing an unexpended balance of $116,096. This summary is included in this report as attachment number 2. Dr. Grenier also reviewed the health insurance report, which is included in this report as attachment number 3. Director of Buildings and Grounds. Groundbreaking ceremony for the new middle school will be held on April 23rd, 2019 at 3:30 p.m. Water testing results. Mr. Kilpatrick noted that in January, testing was done at Fitch High School, and the State Department suggestions were followed regarding the 2 sites in questions, and the results came back below action level. Excuse me. He also noted that the faucet at Claude Chester was changed out. He also reported that the field house at Fitch was tested for a second time on March 1st, and the levels were below action level. The pipes and fittings at the concession stand are currently being addressed by a plumber, and testing will occur soon. At the NEA facility study, Mr. Kilpatrick noted that he is still waiting for the Northeast Academy report. He also noted that the standard 5-year testing for radon at all school locations came back negative. In regard to the Director of Food Services, Mr. Koschmeider said that the Eastern Point concession stand will open June 15th, 2019 and close on Labor Day. There will be a soft opening on June 14th, 2019. He also talked about a community eligibility, that's the word I screw up on, Eligibility Program. This would make all students of qualified schools eligible for free lunch. The qualified schools are Claude Chester, Catherine Kolaski, Westside. The food service director has to submit applications by April 15th, 2019. If a school qualifies, the Board of Ed has until June 30th to submit CEEP applications for each. Once accepted, the program carries on for 4 years before renewal is required. Also, they have applied for a USDA grant of $100,000 to provide funding for purchase and maintenance of a new freezer at the high school to better accommodate the ongoing farm-to-table program that covers the whole district. There's no old business.
I didn't add in there that the freezer, they currently are storing it off-site. What happens is they have a site that actually cuts it up, I believe, in Norwich. When they get the produce from different local farms, they cut it all up and they freeze it right away, and so it's being housed somewhere else. So this would get the food closer and to service all the districts. So that would.
No old business. Moving on to new business. Discussion and possible action regarding the acknowledgement of the contributions of paraprofessionals and acknowledge April 3rd, 2019 as Paraprofessional Appreciation Day and March 31st through April 6th, 2019 as Paraprofessional Appreciation Week. Motion to acknowledge the contributions of paraprofessionals and acknowledge April 3rd, 2019 as Paraprofessional Appreciation Day and March 31st through April 6, 2019 as Paraprofessional Appreciation Week, and to direct the superintendent of schools to send a letter of appreciation to paraprofessionals was passed unanimously. Discussion and possible action regarding recognition of Administrative Professionals Day and Week. There was a motion to recognize April 24th, 2019 as Administrative Professionals Day and April 21st through 27th as an Administrative Professionals Week, and to direct the superintendents of schools to send a letter of appreciation to the administrative professionals that passed unanimously. Discussion and possible action regarding the approval of a Fitch High robotics field trip to a World Championship competition, pending qualification, April 24th through 27th in Detroit, Michigan. There was a motion to approve this field trip to the World Championship competition, pending qualification, April 24th through the 27th in Detroit, Michigan, passed unanimously, pending qualification, of course. Discussion and possible action regarding the course proposals outlined in Attachment 4 of the March 11th, 2019 COW agenda so that the curriculum writing can be begun and the courses can be added to the high school program of study. There was a motion to approve the course proposals outlined in Attachment 4 of the March 1st, 2019 COW agenda so that the curriculum writing can begin and the courses can be added to the high school program of study.
So you don't have to read all the minutes, that's fine.
Passed unanimously.
If we could just get a summary of anything that's relevant to the RTM, that would be good.
Thank you.
Everyone can be on the email list for the minutes, and we should read it.
I should pull the paraphrase in front. I usually do, but you did good.
No.
Thank you for helping me.
Thank you. Representative McDermott, do you have anything?
No meeting, no report, but I would like to ask a question of Representative Whitehouse. He took off too quickly for me. Is that permissible at this point in time?
Sure.
All right. Just a question. Has there been any discussion in the economic development sphere as regards perhaps upgrading or sprucing up or making Route 1 and 12 more attractive, that this is an integral part to our whole development to make Groton more enjoyable and attractive? Have they done anything about that or even talked about it?
They haven't talked too much about it specifically. The beautification committee is working kind of more on that concept.
Plus the Economic Development Committee working with them, or just something on their own.
Right. So economic development focuses more on kind of creating the resources for the businesses. So there's some funds available from the town for building projects and those kind of large scale projects. But the beautification stuff, which sounds like you're talking about, kind of making a nicer, more appealing gateway to the town.
That is exactly what I mean, yeah.
So there is some talk about wayfinding signs, so better signage, gateways, welcome to Groton and this way to Mystic and that kind of thing. They're definitely working on that. But there has not been a lot of discussion about actual beautification it's mentioned in broad terms, like occasionally, that would be a nice thing to do. But there's not much specific discussion. But I can certainly bring that up at the next.
Which I'd appreciate it.
Thank you.
Because it's certainly something we should do, I think.
Manager Burt, did you have anything to add to that?
I thought he covered it very well. Other than it is internally things we talk about between the planning department and myself, and it is on our radar very much.
Representative Wells, did you have a golf advisory committee update? I know you've all been waiting for this.
Yes.
The Golf Advisory Board met Monday, April 1st. And I think first, the good news. You may have noticed I've gone over in the past about revenues. I keep talking about the course and the rain days and the number of days the courses were closed due to bad weather. Well, and I never really mentioned the money, which was depressing. This last month, revenue is up 62% over the previous March, and revenue is up 44% over the average of the prior 4 years of March. So it's not exactly going to make up for what they lost in the winter, but it is looking good. Membership sales are moving along briskly. They have a new membership category, associate membership, which targets millennials, which I think is age, anyway, what is it? Anyway, targets, they had expected, they were targeting about 15 of these associate memberships, and they have 6 returning members and 7 new members, so it looks pretty clear they're going to meet or exceed the associate membership target. And they've added a community outreach coordinator who is charging around, talking to Pfizer and EB, and arranging meet and greets, and putting things in the EB newsletter, and the relocation staff to tell them about the golf course and offer one-time discounts if you can show your EB badge and at the golf course. They were also preparing flyers to put out for weddings and at hotels where people come to weddings and then they wonder what they're going to do in their afternoon and lure them out to the golf course. 2 things which I have to mention is that they're going to have a meet and greet social night at the Par 4 restaurant, and these will be from 5 to 7 p.m. One is on May 23rd and one is on June 20th. And so they're trying to work into the social element of going to the golf course rather than just going out there with 4 people and chasing the ball around. And well, let's see, we'll skip over that. That's not, let's see. And something which I know you're all curious about, the comfort station. That's going out to bid yet again. The new vendor, they said, sounds very good over the phone, but apparently sometimes when they put the numbers to paper, they tend to go and a little more and a little more. So if all goes well and it's as good as it sounds over the phone, we should have a comfort station in this fall.
Thank you. All right. Our next item, I believe, is Public Works. It's really the only actionable item on our agenda tonight, with Representative Massett has taken over as chair of that for their meeting.
The Public Works Committee met on April 10th. The meeting was called to order at 6:32. Members present: Representative Merritt, Representative Stanford, Representative Wells, and Representative Massett as the acting chair. Members absent: Chair Newsom. Visitors: Gary Schneider, Director of Public Works, Representative Eben, moderator of the RTM, and Representative Starkley, who is a new member and wasn't really sure. So I put him down as a visitor. Referral 201974-2, town acceptance of property for entry/exit from new middle school through Grosso Tech. Director Schneider explained the reason we should accept this piece of property is it will allow for another entrance and exit to the new middle school site. 4 in favor, no noes, and no abstentions. Meeting adjourned at 6:40. I so move.
Thank you. Is there a motion to accept those minutes? Oh, so I need a second. Thank you, Powers. We have a motion. It's been seconded. Is there any questions or discussion? No? All in favor of approving those minutes, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Those are approved. Would you like to put a motion on the floor?
I move that the town accept the property easement to be used for an entry and exit for the new middle school through Grosso Tech property.
Okay, so you're moving item 219,
Yeah.
2019-174 easement over state property. Thank you. Is there a second? Representative Whitney? Is there any questions? Do we want to have any, does anyone have any questions? Want background? No? All right. Representative Merritt?
What was that number again?
For the easement?
Yeah.
What I have on mine is 2019-174.
Yeah, that's what I had. I thought I heard 74.
174 is what I said?
-2, because, well, it's only because the program that we use for making them, every time you put the same number on, it'll give it another dash
Another
1,
version
dash
number,
2, dash 3, yep. It's not really a different version actually, though.
Representative McDermott?
I wouldn't know that.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. How big a piece of property is it?
Manager
And
Burt,
I
would you
assume
like-
it's gratis to us? Is that what the deal is?
What'd you just say?
Here,
What was the
let's-
last line?
let Manager Burt answer, please.
Yeah.
Or if you're going to answer,
Yeah, it says it's about 850 feet and then turns another 60 feet, but and it's not actually receiving the property, it's just an easement over the Grosso Tech property, just to get onto our property from that way.
Okay.
But it's about 900 feet length or so.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Representative Whitehouse?
And so there's no downside or cost, this is just a procedural,
Right,
this is how
and
we
we're not
accept
paying
easement.
for it, it's free, it's already gone through the legislature, and it's needed for the traffic there to move forward with the middle school.
Sounds like a good thing.
Thank you.
All right, seeing no more questions, all in favor of let's get this language out here. All in favor of accepting item 29-174-2, the easement over state property, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries unanimously. Thank you. All right, let's see. I believe the next thing on the agenda is any budget discussions. I wanted to just say that we are anticipating that our first budget meeting will be on April 30th. That will have to be authorized by the town council. So we will be meeting together in this room before the next scheduled RTM meeting to begin our budget. So is there any, I see Representative Chase would like to
Thank you, Madam Moderator.
speak to the budget.
Thank you. I've been going to all of the town council budget meetings, and I also attended the Board of Education budget workshops. And what I've heard through all of this is that everyone has their wants, has their passions, and I get that. Anytime budgets are reduced, it is shocking and difficult. Somehow we all pull together and carry on. We, the RTM, must decide the outcome of the total budget. We must be a body that is prudent and fiscally responsible with our constituents' hard-earned money and trust. We must fund necessities and not wants. The state is talking about shifting costs down to towns. State grant amounts are likely to decline. Healthcare costs continue to increase. We have the new schools to pay for 20 years, I might add, and regular high-cost maintenance of the town. For the town budget, the $1.5 million will be taken out of the fund balance for FY 2020, so there won't be a mill increase. The town manager, John Burt, stated at his presentation at the public hearing that he does not want to take this much out of the fund balance. It is not sustainable. And Mr. Burt, what I learned tonight is that 1.3 of the impact aid is what's going to offset that 1.5. Is that correct?
Right.
So again, it's not sustainable because that was like a windfall for us. So the school budget was approved by the town council for $77,438,090 for FY 20. This is a 1.2% increase, or $952,168 over FY 19. Why the increase? Next year a new school will open. There will be a consolidation with this. There will be a number of teachers not needed. Why an increase? There should be a decrease. If this number is approved by the RTM, we are held to this number as the new MBR for as long as we are an alliance district. With more school consolidation after the middle school is complete, there should be more savings. There will be less maintenance costs. Why encumber money when it won't be needed? Why increase taxes when it is not necessary? When we eventually stop being an alliance district, our ECS funding will decrease dramatically. We need to start planning for this now. The RTM is here to represent the people of Groton. We must look out for everyone's interests, not just a few. We must think about the future and be proactive now and not be reactive when we are under the gun regarding the financial health of the town. If we don't start thinking about necessities and not the wants of Groton, we're going to have some big problems. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Bordelon?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I also just want to speak to, dipping into the, the 1.5. I mean, keeping in mind that anything that we can see deemed to fit to cut without compromising services. I understand that we want libraries, we want all the stuff here, but we really need to think about what we're up against and how we can maybe make that number maybe not so high to offset it. But I had a question for John about the budget. At the last town council budget meeting, they talked about the senior center and their revenues that they're packing away over there, 400 and something thousand. Could you just clarify a little bit of that's going on?
Manager Burt, would you like to respond?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's a fund where parks, it's kind of commingling. We do track it separately, but there's a fund that has Parks and Rec revenues in there. There's senior meals as well as senior programs. So there's sort of three categories in there that is tracked separately. It does have a fund balance. It's somewhere around that 400,000 mark, but it is planned on some usage this next year. They try not to let it grow too awful large, but it's something, I actually have a sheet that has a breakdown. I just don't happen to have it with me, but I could get that for you if you want to know the amounts for each of the categories.
Okay, I guess just my question after watching the meeting, it triggered questions like, I know they're going to use some of it for equipment, like 24,000. If they're asking for a 3.something% increase, why couldn't they offset the cost a little bit and bring that down to a 2% increase and use some of that balance? So there's things in the budget to look at. There's a lot of little things like that I'm noticing. So I just encourage everybody to pay attention. If you can't attend the meetings, I print the agenda at home and watch it right there in my recliner and write my notes there, so you don't have to attend to get all the information. So I encourage you guys to tune in.
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to actually say that if you can watch those recorded town council meetings, there you can link to them on the town website, and that's a really useful way to get a sense of what the town council's doing. I also wanted to remind you, because there's a few new members here, that everyone is assigned to a committee, and it's really important that you make your best effort to attend those committee meetings, because if you don't get a quorum, that committee can't move forward with their action items and to review that part of the budget. So it's, you know, at the committee level, because it's a small group of people, getting to those meetings is important. You'll be getting a meeting schedule from the town clerk soon, and please see if you put those on your scheduler and make sure you can make those. Again, we need to get a quorum here in order to have action items. Review your rules of the RTM. There are rules about, basically what the process is, how it works, how we address other members. And it would be good if this went forward in a respectful way. So I'd like you guys to read those. And the last item I'll mention here is you'll also get a list. It's a tradition of the RTM to have each district bring food items at each of the budget meetings. So you'll be getting a list of assignments and shortly in your email. So I would just be on the lookout for that. Mr. Burt, would you like to say something?
That's okay. I was just going to verify it. It is $407,382 in that fund. It's broken out. It is broken out between the rec programs. There's just under 128,000. Senior programs about 226,000, and senior food concessions about 53,000. And there is fund balance planned use of in all three of those pieces this year. I don't know how much is planned off the top of my head.
Representative Richardson, did you have a, Richards, sorry. Did you have?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I was actually just going to ask about the schedule, because we haven't seen that yet for when we'll be covering the budget meetings, so we can plan ahead. But also, is that going to include the RTM committee meetings? Because I don't know when any other committees are meeting, and I know with public safety we're meeting next week, so we don't have much notice for other people to attend other committee meetings if possible.
Would the town clerk like to respond to that? Because I don't know the answer.
Well, the meeting notices go out a week before, and the whole schedule should go out tomorrow. So you'll see all of them. They're very tight, though, and what we've had to do, because there's 40 of you, the committee chairs contacted each committee member to see what their availability was, and then we transferred that into the schedule that we made. As far as the annual budget meeting, how that's made is based on town staff's availability. So, believe me, coordinating all of them and all of us, it's quite a trick. So, we haven't actually been charged yet either from the council, so that will happen next Tuesday.
Thank you.
Representative Powers?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I'd like to thank John for putting together the book here. Our budget book is very concise. I've done this for a number of years now, and I recommend every member read the opening budget proposal, pages 1 through 12. And through these pages, I'd like you to specifically look on page 10, where it says gaining some perspective. On this page, there's quite a bit of information. I'm not going to read it into the record because I think everyone should be reading this book anyway. It gives us a good idea where we stand. And out of 169 communities in our town, in the state of Connecticut, everyone's going to face a lot of different deficits here, whether it's education cost sharing, whether it's the teacher's pension. We're all going to face it together, okay? And when we look at cutting the things that we want to cut, we have to look at our town as a whole, and we have to decide here as a body how to do that. I think the average that we're looking at here is 118 out of 169 is our debt per capita in comparison to everybody else. The average is $2,514. The median $1,687. And Groton spends $1,155. That tells you a lot. We're way below what other towns spend. So when we go to cut, we need to cut wisely. And we need to really think about who we're impacting here. We've worked really hard to build the school system back here. okay? We've looked at being able to give our kids a good education in town. I don't have any children, but I'm a firm believer that when people come to live in a state, because I do sell real estate, they look at the education system. And we're doing things in great strides here. Okay, the interest rates are as low as they're going to be. The bonding we're able to get. The town manager and the people that we have cut jobs. They've cut employees to keep us at the level that we're at, and I think they're doing a great job. So truly, when you go to cut things, please look. Because I'm going to ask the town manager now to do me one favor, to please explain what 1 mil cost us to increase in the mill rate to each individual person that pays taxes. Could you explain that to me, John, please?
I think when you were looking
Thank
at it,
you.
it was about $40 per $100,000 of value of home, if I remember correctly.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
I believe it's $40 per every $100,000 of value for a home.
And that's 1 mil increase.
Correct.
Yeah. Representative Stevenson?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. On page 40 in the beginning, this is talking about the enterprise zones. I just had a question. There's a line here that says the Easy Pilot Agreement exemptions total 30 million in assets. Is that tax exempt assets, or is that the tax revenue of 30 million? What's that 30 million number?
I'd have to relook at that. Cindy's more the expert on that. I believe that's. I think I'd have to. I don't want to speak incorrectly. Let me look it up, and I'll get back with you tomorrow.
And then you would send me some stuff regarding the state discussion of the enterprise zone stuff. So there's another line here in the paragraph saying that reimbursements were discontinued in 2011. So why are we still obligated to provide that tax breaks if they're no longer, if the agreement originally was that we were going to get reimbursed by the state? Doesn't that break contract? Like, what's the state of that?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's controlled by state law, though. So you're talking about the MMNE?
Yeah.
Yeah. Last time we got any revenue off of it was 2010, and that's a huge one. Where over time we've missed out on about $39 million, which is significant. It's all controlled by state law, and that's part of that House Bill. Shoot, I just blinked on the number. Whatever, there's a House bill out there. Just blinked on the number. Sorry. It's a 7405, I think. I think it's 7405, but I could be wrong. That the first one calls for looking at all state mandates and creating a report by next February, sometime in February next year. I'm hoping they'll really take a look at that. But then there's another bill that would look at sunsetting, hopefully. Giving more, allowing us to opt out of enterprise zones so we can do something more locally on tax abatements, but then also looking at the MMNE and sunsetting that out.
So just to be clear, when they stopped reimbursements in 2011, they baked into that they would continue even though they broke the original?
Yeah, there's no sunset date at all right now in the bill. It just goes on forever right now.
Wow. Thank you very much.
Over time, I think that equates to, over the 19 years, I think it was 19 years we looked at, it's about $2 million a year missed out, but really, because that funding stopped in 2010, we're talking closer to like high threes to $4 million a year we're missing it out at this point, which obviously would be greatly helpful. So
yeah, I'd appreciate any updates on that.
Sure,
Thank you.
sure.
Representative Rogers?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I would just like to echo the comments of Representative Powers in heading into this budget season. I really feel strongly that Groton is standing sort of at the precipice of something very exciting. There's a lot of hiring. Electric Boat is adding 900 positions this year. It is expecting to expand through 2023. Our economic development is really gaining traction. As Representative Whitehouse said, our name is beginning to stick. We want these people to come and stay in Groton. They are being enticed to our neighbors. And I feel that it's very important as we look at this budget to consider the long view, not just in terms of our costs, in terms of our potential growth of our tax base. How can we attract more people to Groton? It's not by having spending per pupil 117 out of 169 towns. That's not going to attract people to Groton. We need to invest in the things that people want in their towns. They want good schools. They want strong businesses. They want strong social services, libraries, parks and recreation. These are the things that are going to help Groton grow. I've spent the first part of my career as a journalist. I worked at Inc. magazine, Fast Company magazine, and I have my MBA. I've never in all my time studied a business that grew by cutting the things that its customers wanted. So I'm just heading into the budget season with that on my mind. And I appreciate the notes from Mr. Burt to that effect on page 10 in the book as well.
Thank you. Representative Whitehouse?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. So, Mr. Burt, I'm glad that the budget we have starts with a 0% tax increase, because I think historically what happens is when there's a tax increase there, then it's always thought, well, maybe we can cut this, we can cut that, we can cut this. By starting with 0%, we see what we have to cut to get to 0%. We have to cut the libraries. We have to not fix the bridges. We have to cut the ambulances. We have to cut all these different things. And when you actually do the math on what it takes not to cut those things, is not a profound tax increase. And I think there's the concern about tax increases is that slippery slope. If we raise by half a mil every year, after 20 years, we have a 34 mil rate instead of a 24 mil rate. But at the same time, if we let a sidewalk break and have a sign that says sidewalk closed and not fix it, and then we have a bridge fail and we have a sign that says bridge out, and then we have maybe a park has to close because there's some damage that can't be fixed. If every year there's one more thing, 20 years later when our mill rate's 24 still, we got 20 things broken around town. And then you drive around the town, and Representative Powers is taking a prospective home buyer around town. They say, what happened to that bridge? He says, oh, the town never allocated the money to fix it. Oh, what happened to that sidewalk? Oh, the town never allocated the money to fix it. And they say, wow, this town's falling apart. I don't want to buy a house here. That brings down the property values, which means we have to then raise the mill rate because the grand list falls because the town's falling apart. So as we go into the budget process, there's two things to think about. Yes, there is certainly, we want to be responsible to taxpayers and spend their money wisely. But we can also, with small adjustments, I don't know how many of you saw, I wrote an article that I shared on the Groton Community Forum talking about how, the things we're talking about, the library cuts, fixing the bridge, even taking the money out of reserves, it's not a profound tax increase that it would take to be able to not have to do any of these things. Of course, it's up to the town council, because we can't raise above the number they go to. But I think it's good that everyone can see.
We can raise above the town council. We can't raise above the town manager.
Right. But I mean, if the town council doesn't raise above the budget that you sent them, then we can't go above that. But I think it's good that the town can see these are all the cuts that it would take. So we can have that conversation of, do we want these cuts or do we want, and when I shared the article on the Groton Community Forum, where there's usually a lot of people who are tax, I think it's tax hawks, people want lower taxes no matter what. I didn't see a single comment from anyone who said, yes, cut the library, don't fix the bridge, totally worth it to save a third of a mil. Everyone said, that makes a lot of sense. We should spend a little bit. We're a town with nice things. Nice things cost money. I want to live in a town that has nice things. That's why I live in Groton, because it's a beautiful town. It's got good things. And our tax rate's not that high. I mean, it may seem high because our property values are higher, because we're a town that has nice things. And I'd like to see it stay that way. Thank you.
Representative Quinn.
Thank you, moderator. Speaking on being on this RTM for the last 4 years and going into this budget, but also being a mortgage representative in this community for 35 years, I'll tell you what people are looking for when they come to this town. They're looking for a good value in a house and low taxes. When I sit down with first-time home buyers, the first thing they look at is how much the taxes are going to cost on the house they're purchasing. And as soon as the taxes are higher, the seller has to lower their value of their price because first-time home buyers cannot afford to purchase that home with high taxes. Their principal balance has to be reduced so their principal and interest payment can be lowered so that they can accommodate the high taxes. So I agree, it's a balancing act between our wants, our needs, but if you want to see the values of this town's houses decrease, raise your taxes. And if you don't think that I am speaking on experience, look at what Norwich and New London have become. I have customers that sit at my desk all the time that immediately cross those towns off their list because they can't afford the taxes. The other town that that's happened to is Ledyard. One of the reasons Ledyard's taxes have increased so high is because of the casinos. They've had to accommodate for all those amenities, but they don't get all the money from the casinos to help pay for those towns. You can go over to Ledyard and buy a house for about $30,000 to $40,000 less in Groton because their taxes are so high that sellers have to sell the house at a decrease so people can afford the principal and interest and the taxes. So although I don't agree to cutting the budget or slashing it, I tell every one of you that if you own a house in Groton and you want to sell it, or you want to see first-time home buyers move into our neighborhoods, we have that balancing act that we have to keep our taxes to a point where people can afford it. And although I respect the report that tells everybody where we are as a community throughout the state of Connecticut, I could tell you right now our competition is Stonington, Waterford, East Lyme. And when you look at houses in those neighborhoods and you look at what they're getting for a cost and what their taxes are, they're our competition. We can't compete against Fairfield County. We can't compete against Hartford County. We have to compete against New London County. And I would hate for Groton to turn into a New London and a Norwich, where I see people who have bought houses who can't sell them, and I see new people who can't afford to move into those neighborhoods. So tread lightly. We need to balance the budget. We need to have good things in our neighborhoods and communities, but we have to keep our houses at a value that if people are going to move in, they don't have to fear that when they go to sell, they're going to take a loss, because our taxes have gotten out of control. And we're on that cusp. We're on that cusp of where our taxes are becoming a little bit too high compared to our competition, not in Connecticut, but in New London County. I would hate to see us become a Norwich or a New London. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Mello Miller.
Thank you. To echo Representative Whitehouse and Rogers' point, and also to touch on the point just addressed. So I am a military spouse, and we are settling in this area. I've lived here for 5 years. The first year, I rented a house in Gales Ferry. We looked at approximately 8 houses in Gales Ferry and Ledyard, and I wanted to stay in that community, love the community. However, the mill rate was so high that we got a newer home with a lower mill rate for coming to an area like Groton that had a community and services to support it. So that's why I chose Groton as opposed to trying to stay in Ledyard, is the mill rate was lower. Second of all, if you look at page 11, you talk about it about halfway down in the budget book, it talks about that the potential construction over the next few years will be a prime example of EB, but resulting tax revenues will be stifled for a number of years. They estimate either 5 or 10 years, depending on the state award, due to the likelihood of being granted by an enterprise zone designation. So what I'm getting just from that is that we have people coming, and we're going to have to invest in that. And if that means we have to pay $120 more in our taxes this year and maybe next year for us to get lower taxes in 5 years and 10 years and build our community, I'm willing to do that. It also states we can no longer afford to cut positions without dramatically reducing or eliminating services. We're at the point in these services, Parks and Rec cut. I believe the other areas have cut positions. People have retired, they have not replaced the positions. We are at the point where we have no more positions to cut.
So we either agree and see all of these jobs coming to this area and build a community that people want to live in. And right now, the levy per capita on page 10 says we are 142 out of 169. So the average was 2932, median was 2832. We're not doing so bad here in Groton, and I think this is a wonderful place to go. But like Representative Rogers says, we have to be willing to invest in the future. Like they said in Field of Dreams, build it and they will come. And that's truly what we are doing by investing. You know, even we have all of these CIPs coming up. By investing in these CIPs, by investing in our community, we are truly investing in Groton's future. And I'm willing to spend that little bit extra money for those wonderful families that I know are going to come, than to keep my taxes low and not reap the benefits of all of the wonderful jobs that are coming. That just does not make any sense to me. So that's how I feel in moving towards the budget. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who hasn't spoken yet? Representative McDermott?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Just to recollect what happened last year in our budget process, we had a lot of questions and discussion about things that were really pretty evident in the budget book. So I would just ask everybody to read those pages, and if you have questions, try to answer them with what's written, and not just talk for the sake of talking, because really would like to get through this process as efficiently as possible, and I think that will make it happen if we do that. Thank you.
Yeah, Town Clerk has something to add.
Just a spin-off on Representative McDermott, efficiency. Really, the YouTube is carrying all of the meetings for the Committee of the Whole. So you have to, in order to watch, you'd say Groton Town Council Committee, COW, C period O period W period, and then the date. And I can send you links. I can send you all the links if you want them. And then you can just touch the link and open it up, if that would be more helpful. But those meetings are crucial to watch, where you have all the department heads and outside agencies really digging into the budget. It's good.
Representative Whitney?
Thank you. I find the televised meetings very helpful, and you can find it in the drop-down menu on the Groton Town site. It just says meetings and televised. And you can use the fast forward button. It's very useful. But along those lines, I was just wondering, as we go through our budget process for the RTM, you send out an updated spreadsheet that says what's been passed and what hasn't. Could you pass along to the RTM, maybe on a weekly basis, what's happened with the town council, maybe to this point, and next after that? Because that helped me too.
Right.
To see what numbers have been passed to this point.
Right. The format that we're receiving might not be as helpful, but we'll try to put something together next week that really shows you what they've done. Okay. And you need to set your meeting. Right.
Well, seeing no more hands up. Oh, sorry, Representative Bordelon?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I just want to kind of agree with some of the comments. I won't go through all the names. The town voted and people wanted a middle school, so they were expecting a tax increase. So even though we're at a 0, people were willing to pay. They voted overwhelmingly on that big referendum. So in thinking of that, and everyone was talking about all the things coming into the town, schools are important as well, but also the infrastructure in this town and the way the town looks. I know we currently have a beautification committee, and we have this whole TIF thing going on, which is great, and I know that Thames Street's part of that. But we talk about the companies in the city of Groton, which are Groton, where everybody's coming in for these jobs. And I recently had the experience, and I won't go into great detail, with a friend's son who came to town. I told him that they're hiring. He graduated. Long story short, he came in through the exit downtown in the city. And this is his first impression, right? You know, you're off that, you think you're this young 21, 22-year-old graduate. You get off the highway after coming from Providence, and you look. You got the condemned roller skating ring, that package store, the building that's falling down, Norm's spruced up a little bit, and then you continue down Thames Street. We have nothing to offer in the city in the way of restaurants. There's nowhere you can eat in the city of Groton and get a true napkin with a formal dining, meaning a non-paper napkin. We have Shenecosset Parkway, Par 4, which is wonderful, but that's not formal. They're great for what they are, and I appreciate them. Someone said Olio's, that's in the town. There's nothing in the city of Groton that's attracting people. They're not going to go drive to Mystic on the day of their interview. So when they're looking for a place to live, it starts with coming through that infrastructure looks old, beat down. We really need to allocate money. I know people are afraid to give money to Mumford Cove and this place, but the city needs, we got to come up with a plan to beautify that, so when these first-time entrepreneurs are coming off, they're choosing to stay in Groton. So how that looks like in our budget, I don't know. I would be open to suggestion. I know the TIF is coming in, but we need to do something. We have a beautiful coast on the Thames. I take the water taxi over to go get ice cream and go to the clam bar across the way. We could have that on our front. So just keep that in mind. Our infrastructure's old. We need to do something, and I hope with this TIF we got to put the money in it, because where the money's coming in, the young people, there's nothing to do. And they look at that, and some people say, someone said to me, oh, Mystic's hot right now. People are buying in Mystic. Well, use that word loosely, because a section of Mystic is not Groton tax. So where that person chooses to live in Mystic affects our tax revenue. There's certain sections that they choose to live in that aren't helping us. So I encourage that I don't know where this fits with John or whatever, but we got to figure out a way where the people are coming in their suits, coming off the highway, going for that job. We got to reflect that we can have all these great services, but they need to see that. There needs to be advertising over there. We need to do something to attract the youth that are coming in off that highway to Pfizer and EB. Because living over in the city, the cars are all coming off. When I come from work in Norwich, tons of traffic. I have a clear shot home because everybody's leaving. And when I leave in the morning, they're all coming in and I wave to them. So how do we keep those people? That's that's what's going to help us. So I hope this economic development and the TIF motivation, but we got to find a way. I'm not saying give the city a ton of money. I'm just saying that's where we're saying all this money. Everyone from the town will say, we don't want to give the city all this money. It's the city. But that's where the people are coming in. So how do we support the city to clean up that area that everyone keeps talking about as our base of money? Because as soon as we bring it up, nobody wants to fund anything. So anyway, that's something moving forward. I would love to see how we can figure out a way to clean up that. We got to think of the person coming off the highway going into that job. And what do you see? Would you pick to live in Groton? Think about it.
Thank you. All right, we have no other business that I know of. Is there anyone who wishes to bring? Representative Wells?
I thought I'd say something, if I may.
You may.
I'm not entirely comfortable with telling residents of the town, you may want a better town, but you don't need a better town. You may not need a town as good as what you already have. And I'm sure that if we keep the taxes low, that the landlords in Mystic won't raise the rents because they say, well, it's not costing me more. I think they get what they can for their properties. And the taxes come out of their profits. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Any other business to come before this body tonight? Seeing none, I would take a motion to adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion that's been seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? I'll see you maybe on the 30th, tentatively. And thank you. Good night.